Hello and welcome to Raj Sabha TV. You're watching India Fights Back with me, Rajat Kane. Well, in this episode, we'll talk about long COVID and especially how it can trigger several complications, even among those who have recovered fairly well. Well, among several issues, there is a focus on diabetes. How long COVID or COVID that is there persisting for a duration more than or rather longer than normal can trigger diabetes or can even complicate further diabetes in the patients or the ones who have recovered with the existing diabetes. To discuss further on this issue, we join with Dr. Ashok Jhingan. He is Chairman, Delhi Diabetes Research Center. Many thanks, Dr. Jhingan, for joining us, and Dr. Rajesh Malhotra. He is Chief of Trauma Center, COVID Facility of AIIMS, New Delhi. Many thanks, Dr. Rajesh Malhotra, to be part of the show. Dr. Jhingan, let me start with you here first. Sir, what have you noticed, especially post the second wave? How the concept, or rather this phenomenon of long COVID is becoming, fairly recurrent?
First of all, I must compliment you that you have selected a very good topic. And this is the problem which is coming across all of the people who have undergone this COVID, and they are afterwards also this is having the late COVID phenomena.
Okay.
So I think the reason why this second wave was there, that the people in the month of January or December, they thought that the crisis is over, and everybody was so reluctant, everybody so relaxed. And
Right.
I think they just were not following any instruction in spite of the repeated recommendations by the government authorities that we must follow the distance, we must maintain the hygiene, we must wear the mask. And in the public places, I was also shocked. I saw the people who were moving without the mask. They were so close in one of the banquet hall I visited, and I saw that there was a regular announcement, but in spite of that, nobody was following. So this was a thing which was supposed to be in the waiting line, and I think we have burned our hands because of this second wave. And the peculiarity with this and the first wave was that this has affected the younger generation.
Okay.
The productive population of the country was mainly affected, and the mortality was also very high.
Right. Certainly.
So this is the real matter of concern as regards this second wave we are talking about.
Right, sir. I mean, we're further talking about, with diabetes that is fairly seen among those who have recovered. So would like to talk about that as well, Dr. Jhingan. Why we're seeing, the ones who have recovered from COVID having issues like irregular diabetic readings, or for that matter, I mean, if even in, say, pre-existing diabetic patient, this diabetes has increased further?
That's a really very good question, because COVID itself is a very inflammatory process. And during this, what happened that there are receptors, and these receptors are mainly situated on the beta cells of pancreas.
Okay.
And these receptors are affected by the COVID virus. So there are 2 or 3 mechanisms by which the diabetes can have it. One is a direct effect on the beta cells. So there will be no more production of or less production of the insulin. Number 2, because cytokine storm and because of a severe inflammatory process, insulin resistance happens. So the insulin sensitivity goes down and the sugar levels goes up. And number 3, the diabetes itself is a metabolic inflammatory process. And these comorbidities which were there, right, those people who had a hypertension, those people who already had a existing coronary artery disease, in all those people, it was seen that when they were already having existing diabetes, the sugar levels shoot up. Not only that, indiscriminate use of steroids in the steroid use, we must know when to use, how much to use, and when to stop. But I think there were lack of some communication gap, and because of that, indiscriminate use of steroids further aggravated the sugar levels, and that causes a uncontrolled diabetes. About your second part, which is a real very interesting, many patients, they presented for the first time with the hyperglycemia. And there were no incidents, there was no reports, there were nothing like that. They had undergone test 3 months ago. There was no evidence of a high blood sugar. But following the COVID infection, they developed a severe hyperglycemia. And I have seen myself a patient who came about 2 months ago, and he had a 14% HbA1c. That means after 3 months of a COVID, the sugar levels were still very high.
Right.
And the reason is that's why this diabetes is called as the COVID diabetes. This is a
Okay.
new entity which is called as the COVID diabetes or COVID hyperglycemia.
Right, right. Dr. Jigar, just stay on. Let me have Dr. Rajesh Malhotra in the show. Sir, many thanks for waiting. Dr. Malhotra, how much of a rush we have seen, especially during or after second wave, whereby patients who have recovered have to be readmitted with further complications?
There has been a sizable number of people who have been admitted, but those who have been admitted have been primarily admitted because of the lung complications.
Okay.
The patient had severe damage to the lung and he recovered from the COVID, even went home. And then was readmitted with admitting the other group and a sizable group of patients who have been admitted have been the mucormycosis patients who were discharged, and after that they had to be readmitted because of the mucormycosis. You would have also heard that there has been a disconcerting increase in the number of strokes, and somehow the problem is that when the patient apparently recovers from the COVID and goes home, we have seen a simmering inflammation in the body of the patient for a very long time. So all those patients who are saying that I am having aches and pains, I feel fatigue, all those kind of symptoms, which they started only after the COVID, a testing of their inflammatory markers, the simple ones like CRP and ESR, revealed that all of them had persistent inflammation. And that inflammation, when it is going on in the joints and the muscles, is causing pain and fatigue. You would remember patients of chikungunya used to have pain, not for months, but years together after the viral illness. And that is ongoing inflammation. Similarly, the ongoing inflammation in the other vital organs, pancreas, for the heart, and then some degree of the coagulation disorder somehow initiated by the COVID virus. They have all been the cause for persistent symptoms, to a large extent the reason for long COVID and majority of the reason.
Dr. Malhotra, what has been the majority of mix of patients? Like, are they, youngsters more than people which we have? There is a common perception about senior citizens or people above age of 60 that they are more prone towards either the disease or, say, the relapse of any disease. So, are we seeing more youngsters or age group with older ones?
The definition, whether of young and old, has been evolving continuously. But there was, in the second wave, there was a much greater proportion of patients between 40 years of age who are still called young only by all modern standards. Those who needed hospitalization. The fact remains that those who were already known diabetics, or those who had chronic kidney disease, or those who had major illnesses beforehand, cancer, stroke patients, they continue to still occupy the large majority of hospital beds. Even the children which we got in the second wave in the hospital were mainly the children who had serious other illnesses like serious liver disease or blood cancer. So I think at the root of it all, the majority of the cases were those who were not already in great health, and that we saw in the first wave as well, and that trend remained continuous in this second wave also.
Right. Many thanks, Dr. Rajesh Malhotra, for opening remarks. I'll come back to you. Just stay on here. Dr. Jingan, as we discussed about, say, diabetes, and especially like you mentioned how we are seeing diabetes recurring at the same time developing in patients who have just recovered from COVID. The COVID diabetes, the phenomenon, as you mentioned, which age group or the mix are we seeing are more susceptible to COVID diabetes?
In fact, it was in both the groups. It was we have a young people also like those who were about 17 or 18 years old also, and then those who are like 30s and 35 and 40s. In 30 to 40 age group, people were there, and these were they did not have any history of a diabetes before. So this all happened because of the COVID. There was a severe hyperglycemia. That means the sugar level shot up. And this all happened because of a severe inflammatory process which occurred because of a COVID. Because COVID is the one which immune system of the body get disrupted. And when you get there is a no defense system, even those cells which are defending these viruses, they also become inactive. And the reason is that the severe inflammatory process, which is called as the cytokine storm, takes place. And during this process, the insulin resistance happens, and then they develop a severe hyperglycemia. The problem is that this process persists because this is, as I told you, it's a direct the direct involvement on the beta cells of the pancreas, at the same time indirectly also. And then, of course, the inflammatory process. As Dr. Malhotra was saying, that the chest is the lungs which are basically involved. And the severe inflammatory process itself can lead to a vicious circle. That when there is a severe infection, more sugar levels rise. So in these particular patients, as you said correctly, that both groups, because in the West, of course, there was a large number of the people who are the young generation, like between the 15 to 21, and in our place, in our country, these were the 30s and 40s who became diabetic for the first time. And of course, there were other cases also who were 50s plus and all that. But the main problem which I saw in all group of the patient, because I was constantly seeing these patients, that the sugar levels were in a very high side, 400, 500, especially those who were on steroids. But fortunately, all of them responded very well on the insulin therapy.
Right.
And I think with the grace of God, all of those people are recovering and they have recovered. So it looks like that the severity was very high, and that's why you saw that there was a high mortality in the second wave.
Right, right. Dr. Malhotra, how many of such patients who have developed post-COVID symptoms have you seen are in need of critical care?
So, it's very difficult to put a number on that, but then...
But in terms of percentage and proportion, yeah.
Yeah, no, I can give you an idea about the fact that there was a time when the non-COVID ICU, almost 90% of the patients were those who had actually recovered from COVID initially, and they were readmitted with the pulmonary symptoms. The other group which we continue to see in the outpatient, particularly those with diabetes, had a implication on their treatment of non-COVID conditions. For example, a lot of patients we saw after the second wave who came, say, for hip replacement surgery or knee replacement surgery, and they continue to have high blood sugar. So that became a concern because we know that up to 3 months after the COVID, undergoing the surgery has got a greater attendant risk of complications if you operate on them within 3 months of having been hospitalized. And having high blood sugars not only actually puts them at more greater risk of the medical complications around the surgery time for non-COVID conditions, but it also significantly increases the risk of infection by the caused by the surgical procedure. So all these things. The point I'm trying to make here is that the long COVID continues to compromise the care of non-COVID ailments as well, directly or indirectly, whether it is about seeking the help for the non-COVID conditions or having the necessary fitness to
Right.
undergo the procedures or to keep the complications at bay. Right.
Uh, Dr. Chingan, as we move towards the close of the show here, sir, we started the show talking about how people, they were just off guard, or possibly they were careless, if one may put it this way, in terms of not following COVID appropriate behavior. So that also somehow added to, numbers increasing to, vast proportion in second wave. As we head towards a concept or hypothesis of a third wave or a possible third wave, I'm saying possible third wave, nobody wants another wave or hike in numbers. So, what could be the perils if we continue to ignore COVID appropriate behavior?
I think this is a your concern and a very good point, because we should remember that pandemics, they usually last for 2 years or maybe 2 to 3 years. They are usually, even if the pandemic size may become less, it will become an endemic. That means it will be localized to the particular some countries, some area, and these sporadically these cases will come and go.
Okay.
Similarly, I think I'm still afraid, and I'm really shocked to see people. They are not wearing the mask. They are not taking any precaution, in spite of so much in the media that there is a chance that one may get a third wave also. But still, I think the attitude of the people has become altogether different. In spite of burning our fingers in the second wave, we have not learned lesson. We talk about what happened many times. The local authorities, when they permit to open all these malls, when they allow all these marriages to take place, when they stop this limit, so altogether our general public starts thinking, oh, now the COVID is over, let's enjoy. I think that is the feeling. So I think they scientifically, like Professor Malhotra is there, and from those platforms, there should be always, I think Dr. Guleria has been always making these comments, and he has been always talking that one should not take these problems less. They should be very seriously, you must take these problems. But the only thing is that maybe that this is 1.5 years has taken place, people are getting a little restless. You see, this was I can tell you that this was a reverse tourism. That was a revenge tourism. I'll say that revenge tourism. You saw that people, there was no place in Dehradun, no place in Mussoorie, no place in Shimla. So this was a sort of people were suppressed. They wanted to take a revenge, and that's why this terminology was called as the revenge tourism. And now after that, once they realized, the authorities also realized that the people are behaving like this. So now there are rules, and that curve is there. So less number are going. So I think the people should consider, and as I told you, that the pandemics, they usually don't end so soon. It usually takes, because if we talk about 1918, that also took about 2 years. And similarly, this pandemic is also going to take 2.5 years. And WHO is all the time saying that one must be very careful till the 2023. So I think we have to be careful. We have to save ourselves. That's the main.
And Dr. Chingan, the very important point that you've made about, say, revenge tourism, as that's a parlance being often used for people thronging to these tourist destinations. You think in brief, sir, the authorities woke up rather late in containing, or rather taking the steps so as to contain this revenge tourism?
I fully agree with you. The authorities were not prepared. In fact, they must have never thought that to this magnitude, the people will come there. It was only once the pictures were shown, and then all other people also started concerning. I mean, the whole population got concerned. What is happening? What is happening? This thing. And I think then it was late, but anyway, I think it is never too late. So they have taken that decision, and they have curbed that, put those rules. So I'm sure with these all precautions, We may not have a third wave, but we must prepare, get ourselves prepared for anything because we have seen these two waves, first wave and second wave. And you won't believe, if you talk about the extended families, many people must have lost the members.
Absolutely,
so in
sir.
spite of that, if the people don't learn lesson, then it is very difficult to.
Absolutely. That's very important. We had a devastating second wave. A lot of people lost family members and friends and acquaintances over there. There was a massive shortage of oxygen, as you saw. I mean, in papers and news everywhere. It was a catastrophe. Dr. Rajesh Malhotra, sir, your closing remarks. How important, therefore, it is to keep following COVID-appropriate behavior.
I'll continue from where Dr. Jeevan talked about this. Our apprehension is that people do not follow behavior. You are giving opportunity to the virus to mutate. And if it mutates, because it goes unchecked to the population because of the irresponsible behavior, that is when the risk of a third wave will loom large on us. Secondly, we must not get into a sense of false security looking at our local daily numbers in Delhi for that example, but look at what is happening in Kerala, look at what is happening in Maharashtra, Odisha, and what needs to be done is keep a close watch on not only what is happening in your local environment or the local geographical place, but keep a watch globally. The numbers are rising in UK and USA. The numbers have been very high. Positivity rate is very high in Kerala. So don't get into complacence. Be alert and remember, like Dr. Jingan also said, COVID has not gone and probably may not go for another year or so or maybe year and a half.
Right.
So remember that till that time you cannot afford to take the guard.
Right. Many thanks, Dr. Rajesh Malhotra, Chief of Trauma Center, AIIMS. And many thanks to Dr. Ashok Jingan, Chairman, Delhi Diabetes Research Center. So, as we appeal to all our viewers in every episode, please keep listening to experts. Here we had two experts talking about, taking COVID-appropriate behavior and how important is it to keep maintaining a guard and not to lower guard so as to avoid any spike in numbers in near future. Well, that's it in this edition of India Fights Back. Thank you and goodbye.